Hello, hello. This is the day the Lord has made. We'll rejoice and be glad in it. This is Musings of a Sanguine Christian Woman, and today I want to talk about history. And when I say history, like, what is the importance of history? Why should history be taught? Why should we talk about history? What is the importance of history? What impact does history make? Now, a lot of times there is a mixed reaction and mixed feeling and mixed perspective towards history. But I have never seen anyone, history hasn't shown us, and indeed in recent times, the benefit of not knowing your history. And when we say knowing your history, we say your personal history, your family's history, your tribe's history, the history of your tribe, the history of your ethnicity, the history of your country. And you start learning from where you are at. And sometimes maybe not from where you are at, because that might be a problem, really. You will start from the very beginning. Where did you come from? Exactly. So history is best learned from the very beginning than from the present day. So history is best learned as far back into the past as you can go. And if you now learn history that way, you become wise without having to go through the foolishness of learning from your own mistake, right? So you learn, because there isn't anything you want to do that someone hasn't done before. There isn't a journey you want to embark upon that someone has not embarked upon before. And frankly speaking, is that not why we go to school? Is that not why we learn? We learn so it can be easier for us to navigate life. Education is based on history, right? So you learn things from the past that will have an effect on your future, that you would use to learn. There is nothing we are learning right now that just materialized now. It has a foundation, and foundation that's dated for thousands, if not millions of years. And so because things have been added, modified to fit the present day requirements or needs, we often think that is just what it is. But really, history is education. Education is history. Learning is history. So how is it history? Someone is teaching you something you don't know. And usually the people that teach you are older than you. So when someone who is older than you is teaching you, you are learning history. Regardless of whether you are learning maths, whether you are learning languages are based on history. Languages was not invented today. Languages are history. Mathematics is history. We've been adding and subtracting since probably man was created. Sciences were not. It's part of human history. Arts, part of human history. Commerce, part of human history. People were buying and selling have been buying and selling since the days of old. And there is a way you have to learn how to do these things so that you'll be successful. So our entire existence is based on learning from history. So I often wonder what kind of ostrich game people play when they say they don't want to talk about history and they don't want to think about history. And sometimes you want to leave them alone, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast on it. Sometimes you want to leave them alone because really you are too busy learning history for someone who is a history student to bother about someone who doesn't want to learn about it. But the thing is, those who don't want to learn about it, they make it their assignment to also disturb you and try to stop you from learning. And you are like, why are you so concerned about what I know or should know? Like, Why is this an issue for you? You understand? Now, a lot has been happening lately, which has brought about this topic, because a lot of history lessons, people are now telling their stories based on what they know. So it has been a learning moment for everybody. We've learned some things, we have been enlightened, we have been reminded of a lot of things. And the way people will say things like learn from history and let it go, but I don't see how you can do that either, because if you forget what you learned from, how do you remember it, what you have learned? You are trying to, it's like, it's funny when people say things, learn from history and let go of the rest. I don't know how you can do that really, because you are saying once you build a house, you should remove the foundation. The foundation of learning is history. The foundation of learning is history. So when you say forget the past, don't talk about the past. Just learn, just take the lessons and go with it. It's like saying, oh, after you have built your house, remove the foundation and then move the house to wherever it is you want. I mean, if that is now possible, maybe. But as long as that is not possible, I really don't see the logic. And I understand it's not about logic. It's about selfish interest a lot of times. When people don't want to talk about history and don't want others to learn about history, it's based on selfish interest. It's usually suspicious, because it's like they know what is going to happen, they know something might happen, and they don't want people to know about it, because if they go into history, they can already tell what may or may not happen. So there is a conspiracy against learning, where they have edited learning to a point where it's not useful to a lot of people. And the major reason it is not useful is because the foundation of learning is not established. You cannot build a foundation in darkness. You cannot build a house I guess you can build a house in the air, but that technology is not open to everybody right now. Now, is it? I mean, I don't know about that technology. I'm sure it's not impossible to build a house in the air, but it's not a well-known technique. So until it becomes a well-known technique, the way to build a house is from the earth. You dig into the ground. Now, if it is a marshy area, you dig to a point until you get to maybe a stony area. You dig deep. And that's why the Bible talks about, now I understand why, there's a lot of talk about not teaching Bibles in schools, because if you are a student of religion or a student of the Bible, you will be interested in knowing your history, because the Bible is, apart from the living word of God, is so many things. It's so many things. It inspires you to know your history, because I was reading, and that's part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast too. Like I read Psalm 78, and God kept emphasizing on teaching the people, the children who are to come, generations to come, about the word of God, the strength of God, the law of God, and his works. Those are historical facts. Yes, some people might call it folklore. Some people can call their own history folklore. And then again, you now begin to wonder, is it really folklore? The ancients were very spiritual people. They are not like us that we're just a lot of us are surface dwellers. We like to, if we don't see it, we don't believe it. But the ancients, they lived in the unseen. Anybody who's a spiritual person will know there are fairies. Yes, maybe fairies are back in their kingdom and they don't mingle with humans like before, but there were fairies. I'm very sure of that. But now, fairies are now seen as fiction, so they call fiction fairy tales. You know, and sometimes I wonder, those who call history fairy tales, some parts of history or many parts of history, especially ones that are what we call paranormal, are they saying that to keep people from being curious enough to know the truth, or are they saying that because they actually believe it's not true? Personally, I think discrediting history as folklore or fairy tales is a very deliberate attempt to keep people from being curious enough to find out. Like it's like trying to get people off the scent, you know, like, oh, nothing there, it's not real. But the person saying it knows that is real. Heck, even the person saying it might actually be the very thing that he says is not real. Anybody who's a spiritual person knows that a large percentage of the human population are not human. No, and I don't mean in terms of behavior. I mean on a spiritual level. Aliens don't always look like aliens. They can shape-shift. And so if they can shape-shift, you have a lot of people who look human, but they're not human, really. Their original self is not human. So sometimes you find their behavior that is very, very different from the rest. Some are too kind. So they are very, very extreme in their behavior. It's like 2-3 things. One, they are either very extreme or they are very, very secretive, mysterious. They have a mysterious air about them. Like they live their lives like it's a plain thing to see, right? They live their lives that way, like it's a plain thing to see, but your instinct tells you that this person is more than you see about them. Of course, it takes somebody who is also in touch with their spirit man and they are very, very strong spiritually to know that. So we have been told to see history as folklores. Now, for people for where there are documents to show that these things are not folklores, they try not to talk about it because it will offend some people, you know. So sometimes I now wonder, we should not learn some things because it's offensive to other people. And these other people are the descendants of those who committed the initial offense. So you now wonder, you're like, forget about it, you know. And a lot of people want to forget because history is filled with a lot of pain, horror, and terror and grief and darkness and wickedness, majorly wickedness. So not people don't want to remember that. They want to just know that this thing happened and be careful. You can't know your history and know that maybe somebody from a particular family did something against your own family. It's not that you will change with them per se. Some will completely change, really. But you just know that you have to be careful because, I don't know, they have the DNA of the person who harmed you. And you never know who would have the full-blown DNA to want to continue from where their ancestors stopped. You never know. So the idea of history is to be careful to be on your guard. That's the word. To be on your guard. And it's also to educate you. Like I said earlier, there is no education without history. History is the foundation of education, is the foundation of learning. Is the foundation of our existence as human beings. Without our history, how do we even know who we are? Right? We won't know who we are. We won't know anything about ourselves, and it would now become an issue of unknown identity. Living without an identity is not a good thing. You will just walk into a danger zone without even knowing it. If we removed history, for example, there will be nothing like minefields, for example. Yes, because there is no history. We don't talk about if something happened yesterday is now history. Yes or no? Right. So, if something happened yesterday and is now history, and we don't talk about it, so there will be no records of minefields. We'll just see drills and we won't know where they came from. And minefields are minefields. Very dangerous places. A wrong step and is an explosion. So, and that's why you have a what is it called now? A saying that somebody is walking on a minefield. So when they say someone is walking on a minefield, what that means is the person is walking in a dangerous situation that looks normal but is filled with hidden dangers. That's what that means. So if we shut down history completely, people will want to build houses on minefield because it looks like a piece of land. In fact, they'll be wondering, why are we so wasteful? This is a land, big place. Why can't we build there? Why don't we set up a camp there? And they just go and build on a minefield. And then what happens? Another history is made. Is that not it? Like, why? That is like inducing amnesia on the human race. How do you live a life of being forgetful? Memories are very important. And the thing about memories is they are not selective because it's a mix of everything. The sweet, the sour, the bitter. You know, the sweet, the sour, the bitter. Is a mix. So if you omit one out of them, chances are you will also forget the sweet memories because you are trying to forget the old memories. Like, I can't forget that my loved ones that have gone to be with the Lord, because it's a painful thing that they've gone to be with the Lord. If I can't see them, I can't relate with them physically anymore. But I remember them. How do I say this now? I remember them and the memories we shared. I can't remember the memories we shared and minus them from the equation. How do you remember the good memories, especially when the person you had it with is gone? Maybe your grandparents or something. You remember. So a lot of times I had to force myself to not forget because I don't want to lose my good memories. So sometimes the price to pay is it's not sometimes. The price to pay for not living a life without memories, a life of perpetual, Alzheimer's. I don't want to, so they want, I don't know. I refuse to live the life of, Alzheimer's is not is a disease that destroys families. Everybody around that person who has it feels the pain of not being remembered. While you are still, you're there. The person you've shared 50 years with, 20 years with, doesn't know you anymore. Looks at you with a blank look, like, who are you? Do I know you? And sometimes they can be hostile because they don't know you. Having these strange people around them sets them off. So imagine that. Imagine that. No, it's not even something we can imagine. Nobody who has loved ones with Alzheimer's are happy that their loved ones have Alzheimer's. They're not happy because they have been forgotten. They have to take care of somebody. They don't mind, but it's painful when the person you loved and shared so many laughter with, so many moments with, is just looking at you with a blank stare and say, oh, you are here again. What do you want? You are disturbing me. And you're like, you imagine that. So why would we want to forget our history? Those with Alzheimer's, they are forgetting their history. No fault of theirs. But it's terrible on both the person that has forgotten and the people that have been forgotten. I certainly hope we're not trying to turn the whole world into a big clinic for Alzheimer's or something, because when we don't honor, we don't appreciate the structure, the humanity that comes with knowing your history. Like, what are we hiding? Right? Scripturally speaking, God is always specific about knowing the history. So, He commanded the children of Israel to always tell their stories. Always. To their children. All the time. And I think it's because God is alive. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So, if we talk about God daily, is to reiterate the fact that it is a present continuous, not history. And frankly speaking, is history really history? The way people present it. I think history is continuous. History is continuous. And that's why there is this dark saying, well, not dark really, but ominous, that's the word. There is this ominous saying that history repeats itself when it is unknown. Because what are you to learn from? Nothing. There's nothing to learn from. You didn't learn it. What you don't learn cannot work for you. For you to learn something, it has to be taught. You see? I understand. Some of us want to play, we are all one big family, and all of that. but you remove the place of DNA. DNA is part and parcel of every one of us. Granted, we are our own person, we are individuals, but we are a collection. We are walking, every person, everybody you see is a walking history. If every cell in our body can speak, if our DNA can speak, and it does have a voice, but should it be audible enough for everyone to hear? Everybody's history is encoded in their DNA, in their genes. So if we are to decode genes and DNAs, it will read like history. It will read the what happened to the grandparents, who are the grandparents, who are the great-great-grandparents, who are the great-great-great-great-grandparents, to several generations backward, the activities that happened. Because what you do, what you see, and so on and so forth, these things, they go into you. They form your DNA and your genes, and then you pass it to the next generation. So everybody is a walking history. So whether you want to know it or not, it's like denying. So you are denying your existence if you don't want to know history. You want other people to deny their existence if you don't want history to be taught. Because everybody is history, is a walking history. You have a DNA that is not just yours alone. So you carry the history of your ancestry in you. So whether you want to talk about it or not, tag your it. Yeah. I think I'll talk about this again, but before I get too emotional, I'll just say, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flows the issues of life. And they that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. Shalom.